Have a seat on your porcelain throne. It's time to talk some shit on the Powell movement.
Welcome to the Powell movement. I'm your host, Mike Powell, and I'm finally back from my life-changing Alaska cruise, and I didn't get COVID on the trip. Did it really change my life? Not even close, but Alaska was amazing. So many incredible views. One highlight was all the bald eagles we saw. A few of them took a huge shit on my father, which was laugh out loud funny. He took it like a champ. Another highlight was seeing whales, which I've seen in Seattle, but there are so many in Alaska and they are incredible. But really, this was my first cruise and I have my thoughts. Cruising reminds me of RVing on the water. The people on the boat are a cross-section of what you would expect at your local Target. There are rich people and there are people who don't have as much, and everyone is separated by cabin classes and drink packages. I didn't notice the separation that much, but there was one very wealthy family complaining to management from the hot tub, and the major complaint that they had was that the ketchup was empty. Like really, this family from Mexico was complaining that all the ship's staff were not American and they couldn't keep the ketchup full. They were being straight up racist to the management and thought nothing of it. Fuck rich people like them. Equally disgusting to me was the gluttony that every cruise ship is known for. It's 24/7 all you can eat and drink, and there's a huge variety and everything is free. While I loved it the first 2 days, I started to feel terrible about the amount of food I was eating. And all the food ended up tasting the same. It's like everything had one common ingredient in it. Another thing about the boat was the staff. They were everywhere and provided great service, even if they were painfully slow at making drinks. But the strange thing about them was that I never saw them have a meaningful conversation with anyone. They were masked and they didn't make eye contact and they did what they were told. It was like they were indentured servants working on a contract, and I'm sure they weren't treated well. The worst thing about the cruise, though, was the whole carbon footprint thing. After getting back, I wanted to see how bad the cruise ship really was for the environment. And as it turns out, going on a cruise ship is one of the worst things a person can do. So at the end of the day, it was nice spending a little time with my dad, brother, and sister when they felt like hanging out. And my son and I, we passed a lot of time doing almost every activity you could possibly do on the boat. So after a week at sea, I gave the cruise a grade of a C. Yeah, it had its moments, and while I will go on another one if my dad takes me, I'd never book a cruise on my own. But it is a great way to see a bunch of places, but I prefer to do that on my own and be on my own schedule. So thanks, Dad, for an amazing trip, and if you're listening, I'm totally down for the Greece and Italy cruise that you're talking about for next summer. That's enough about this vacation. I have another one to Rehoboth Beach the first week of August. If you don't know what Rehoboth Beach is, it was recently in the news as the place where Joe Biden fell off his bicycle. But who cares about bikes? That's the conversation for next week. This week, I'm going to talk about inline skating with an absolute legend. Louie Zamora made his name in skating with a smooth style that almost defined a generation of skaters. He was a true street skater who medaled at the X Games and Gravity Games. He owned companies and he skated for most of the major brands in skating. He's also a statistic of the opioid crisis, but he's one of the lucky ones who's still here, and we talk about it all. It's an interesting and heavy episode with one of my favorite skaters. Before we get into it, I want to ask you to review me wherever you listen to the podcast. I'm hearing you can now do this on Spotify. While you've been able to star rate me there for a while, now you can actually write a review and I'll look into those details and share them with you soon. But if I read your review or your social media posts in the podcast outro, you get yourself a limited edition Powell Movement beanie. And I'll tell you how to do that in the outro. Finally, I want to ask you to follow me on Instagram at The Powell Movement and support the incredible sponsors who make the show happen. They are Stanley, Peter Glenn Ski and Sports, Elon Skis, Rollerblade, and the 10 Barrel Brewery. Now, let's talk with Louie Zamora. Have you seen the movie Revenge of the Nerds before?
Yes, I have seen Revenge of the Nerds. It was a long, long time ago. My dad was kind of into like those National Lampoon comedy style things back in the day.
Okay, because I'm not sure if you knew, but the two title characters in Revenge of the Nerds are Louis and Gilbert. What is your full name?
It's Louis Gilbert Zamora. You got me.
Are they family names, or do the names have meaning in Mexican culture? Or were your parents huge fans of Revenge of the Nerds, the movies?
I think that Louis Gilbert predates the Revenge of the Nerds, to be honest, but I don't think there's any real historical family facts behind the name.
Okay, so I just wanted to check, see if your family was fans of the Tri-Lambs, but all kidding aside, it sounds like you spent your first 10 years of life in Los Angeles, and I think it's your mom, your dad, and your brother coming up. Was it rich, poor, or average for the Zamora family?
It started pretty poor. I mean, pretty young parents trying to get a hold of the whole parenting thing, I think, and hustling. That's all I can remember is my parents working on as much as they possibly could and us moving from different spots. But it definitely was pretty poor in the beginning. We didn't have much.
How about where you grew up? Was it one of those places where it's obvious that gangs are around you and you don't go out at night and you have to watch everything that you're doing?
Definitely. That's a very accurate description. First, it was like the San Gabriel area and then El Monte, and then La Puente was where we kind of stayed when I was younger. Definitely gang infested neighborhoods.
Were you ever jumped or got your ass kicked for no reason?
No, I don't think I actually ever got any physical altercations, but I watched them all the time. And I remember being a kid wanting to go to like the liquor store to play like an arcade game with my brother, and like I remember getting checked by some of the older kids in the neighborhood, like, be careful what street you're on or where you're going. If you're by yourself, if there's like a gang member or an SA in that area, they're definitely going to look at you, and if they think that you shouldn't be in that street, they're definitely going to come up to you. So there's always some type of confrontation, but never anything physical.
And then when I think of you, I think of your size too, because you're probably, 5'4", 5'5" these days, but I'm sure you're a small kid growing up, and it's great for being a skater, but being a kid in the hood or in an area where it's kind of scary coming up, does size play into it? Do people pick on you because you're small and it's easy?
That was definitely a concern of mine growing up. I always knew that I was smaller than everyone else, so I had to find other things to my advantage just in case that situation arose, and it did. Yeah, I definitely did get picked on a bit when I was younger for my size.
But did size ever bother you at all? I mean, because you never seemed to be one of those dudes that had a Napoleon complex or even cared that you were smaller than everybody else. But that's just my assumption, just knowing you just as a friend. But did size ever play into your psyche, or did it bother you?
Early on, like when I was young, I definitely thought about it a lot. But I think as I grew up and I started understanding the way people were and understanding that confidence in myself meant a lot more than, what my physical stature looked like, it started kind of fading away. So, in the beginning, yeah, as a kid, I definitely had that worry, but I grew out of it pretty quick, honestly.
Okay. And then in LA, I think it was all team sports and video games for you. And when we started this conversation, you were playing Street Fighter. And that's something you've played, I think, your whole life from the time you were a kid. What was more important to you growing up? Was it video games or team sports?
A mixture of a lot of competitive things. I just like to compete and perform in skill-based sports, and I feel like Street Fighter was always skill-based. It wasn't physical, though. It was more like practice for my mind, that I could probably use like maybe on the baseball field or something like that. So I guess which one was more important? They were together, man. They're all together.
And with video games, I mean, it's something that's not just a hobby. It's something that you've been serious about for a long time. And I think you might have even competed in Street Fighter, like tournaments and things like that. Have you won money playing video games?
I won like a couple little like local things where some money was handed out, but nothing big. I've been to the bigger Street Fighter and like fighting game tournaments. It's called Evo. It was every year in Las Vegas, but since the pandemic, it's kind of slowed down. I think it's coming up again this year in August. I'm definitely trying to attend. We'll see.
So it's something that you still do and one of the things that you're still competitive with. And with your LA life, it sounds like it was okay, but you eventually moved to San Diego with the family. Was that a really hard thing to do? Leave everything you know and start all over again?
Yeah. I understood why we were going to move, but at the same time, the shock was still there that everything that I built as a child and the friendships that I've also built, and the team sports that I played and all the things that I knew of my area and everything, my whole world was there, and having to uproot that move was a big shock to me. And I kind of just went with the flow. Me and my dad set out there. I didn't know what to expect. All I know is that I wanted to go back home and be with my friends there. Yeah, it was difficult. Definitely was.
But when you make the move to San Diego, I mean, that makes life a safer life for you and your family, right? I mean, it's just a lot easier to live down there compared to what you experienced in Los Angeles.
Yes, I would definitely say it was almost like a reverse of what was happening in Los Angeles. San Diego is a much more relaxed culture. It's more like the flip-flops and shorts and no worries kind of mentality. I feel like where I lived before in Los Angeles was definitely stay alert, fight or flight mentality constantly.
When I think of San Diego, I think of incredible burritos and beaches. And I'd like to think that all Californians spend time at the beach, and San Diego's such an action sports hub. Was there any surfing or any beach time for Louie Zamora?
There was. When we moved to San Diego, I think my mom kind of made it a thing to like make sure us kids went out to the beach, and she would take us quite often. Honestly, she would take days off of work during the week sometimes and just take us out to the beach. I have some really good memories there.
Nice. And I don't think you got really into surfing, but you did get into action sports in 1995-ish when you get to San Diego. How do you get introduced to inline skates?
It's funny. I mean, well, the whole move definitely changed my perception of what can be fun. I mean, I was always looking for something to do, something active and physical. I enjoy that stuff, and then during the beach time too, we also started boogie boarding a little bit, body surfing and a little bit of surfing in there too. It's just whatever I could figure out to do to have fun with is something I wanted to do. But when we moved to San Diego, we moved into an apartment complex before my parents could find a house for us to move into. Some of the first kids I met there were kids that rollerbladed, and I never knew that rollerblading was like a thing. Like literally, I just thought it was something you could do in the roller rink. The whole idea of skating outside wherever you want to go was something completely new to me, and I just was completely in awe of it, actually. So that's how I got introduced to it. It was a really good buddy and a lot of friends in the apartment complex.
And you're one of those guys that starts skating and eventually you become one of the greatest pros in the history of skating. But when you first start, is it something that it feels like an extension of your feet right away? Or is there that year learning process where you have to figure everything out just like every regular kid? Or is it something that you have a natural innate ability to inline skate like no other?
Yeah, it's pretty good with the description as far as it feeling like an extension of myself. Like when I first put rollerblades on, I honestly felt so comfortable. It felt like home to me. It really did. Right when I put them on, I didn't feel like I was scared of the restrictions or anything like that. It just felt really natural.
So you didn't have that I'm going to fall down right away when you put on skates. It just felt like, all right, let's go.
Yeah, it definitely was like, let's go.
Does life become skating every day after school with those kids in the apartment complex?
I mean, every day after school, maybe before school, definitely was pretty much skating, pizza, school.
Gotcha. And how long until you become interested in the culture, like watching the videos and reading the magazines?
It had to have been about a year before I even knew there was actually a culture.
Okay.
I thought we were the culture. Like, I didn't know that people made videos about these things until, like, the kids from my apartment complex linked up with another apartment complex that one of the kids there actually had a copy of Mad Beef and the Hoax. We went over there to his house and we watched it, and I was like, again, another moment of amazement for me to see that people are doing this on that kind of level. It really opened my mind up to possibilities. But at this time, I never really thought of skating as like a profession or something to do on a level where competition was going to be something. It was more of a freestyle thing.
Yeah, and you're just a kid and just having fun. And I feel like the most important thing that happens with your skating progression is that you meet Eric Schrijn, Robert Levanos, and Bo Coddington. They're all important figures in the second or third wave of inline. Again, I don't know how you want to call it, but they're definitely not the first generation, but important early players in the sport. And how do you meet those dudes, and how does the friendship progress?
They're very important figures in definitely my skating history and rollerblading. I would say that they're the second wave because, like, the people that made the Hoax, Chris Edwards and Arlo and all those people and the people behind it started that, and they were kids from that, and they took that idea that you could film your skating, and put them together. And I'd see them at this place called Webb Park. It was like a hub of skating. It was kind of like a little skate park before they built skate parks, but just with ledges. It was a park perfectly made for skating. We would go there pretty much every single day. I mean, there'd be pro skateboarders there too. We linked up naturally there, and then we would see each other again at the Encinitas skate park. At that time, we actually finally talked. That's how that friendship started.
So you have Eric and Robert, and they're, legendary skaters. Bo's a legendary videographer. Are you able to get clips with him? Is that how things start for Louie Zamora, just through those friends and actually Bo being the guy behind the camera?
Yeah, it definitely started that way, and then their network was already much bigger than mine. I mean, they were already skating with like Roadhouse and Dave Payne and stuff like that too. So, I mean, just getting into that crew immediately opened up a lot of possibilities. But I mean, it took a little while to get into that crew. I kind of had to prove myself a little bit. We would skate different spots, and like I would do my things, and I would just go skate and have fun. But Bo would be pretty selective on what he filmed. I'd be lucky to get a couple clips every now and then. I feel like the clips he got of me are the ones I didn't know he was filming. The ones I thought he was filming, he never got. So it was kind of an elusive situation for me there, but I just kept skating anyway.
And what was Bo like back then? Because I see Bo's internet persona these days, and he's definitely very abrasive and rubs a lot of people the wrong way, but he's very strong in his beliefs and he's going to stick to his guns. And I guess there is some respect for that. But was he like a cool and welcoming person back then?
I mean, yeah. I mean, actually, we're being honest here. In the beginning, it was a little difficult. I kind of went through that, like, not a hazing period, but more like let's check this dude out and see, like, if he actually really is what we are, if he really is what he says he is. And, it turned out, I was really about my business rollerblading. I really, really wanted to progress and be good. And I liked the whole idea that you can create these movements on your skates. You can think about things, and I think he sees it as art, so he has his vision. And once I think our visions kind of intertwined a little bit, once we saw rollerblading the same way, it all kind of brought us together. So yeah, Bo definitely had this little phase where he was checking things out and definitely wasn't so eager to let people inside the crew are ready to film even other people. Like, he was really selective with that. So to get into that situation, we had to click, we had to click.
He almost sounds like an old skateboarder. But that is what it is. So something you've always said over the years is that everything happens for a reason. And one day you go to the early session at Encinitas Skate Park. You beg your dad to stay for the second session. Your dad's like, fine, Louie, I'll stay. You can skate. And tell us what happens at that park that day that changes your life.
Yeah, so that day, the reason I wanted to stay is because I saw Eric, Robert, and Bo show up. And, like, this is me just getting to know them. And I'm like, let me stay because, like, I see them. But not only were they there, Team Rollerblade was there as well. Chris Edwards was there testing the new skates that they made. He just had the Tarmac CE release, which was like the first pro skate ever. And they were testing the different versions of it too. They had the chocolate skate there, that other white one. I forgot the names of them. The Trooper. Yeah. And so, like, it was a rollerblading testing session. So also Mike Giacente was there as well. I had known him a little from skating, being a local there. And yeah, that changed everything because when they rolled up and saw me skate, they said, hey, would you like to test these skates with us? Of course I said yes. And that was the beginning of me meeting Chris Edwards and Rollerblade and the whole corporate skating world and how people get sponsored. Like, I didn't know anything about sponsorship or anything like that. I was just happy to skate. That day changed everything.
So when you see Chris Edwards in person, that has to be crazy. I mean, I think about how you and your crew skated and you guys were super technical and it wasn't all about hammers. It was about like a smooth, clean style. Chris is all about the most ridiculous hammers possible. Is your mind totally blown seeing that shit in person?
Oh, yeah. I mean, watching Chris skate back then, it was like, hold your breath. It's like, oh, shit. And then when he lands it, you like finally breathe, like, okay, God, all right, everything's going to be all right. It's one of those feelings, It's a loose cannon out there, which is awesome. Like, I don't know many people that can keep me on the edge of my feet like that, on the edge of my toes.
And I don't think of your skating ever really as hammers. Given you've got some really tech shit throughout your career, there's like the Kind Grind 360 out on the picnic table and lots of controlled royales and backslides on everything you skated in K2s. But was there ever a huge hammer that you were just scared shitless, whether it's a big gap or something that you did and you're like, I'm never doing anything like that again?
There's definitely been some hammers. I mean, I would say that Chris Edwards and even Arlo tendencies to go bigger and do those things that are considered hammers that scare you or definitely influenced a lot of our skating. Like, even though we did a lot of technical stuff, there's definitely big things that I've always wanted to do. I always kept a little list of things I wanted to do or things I didn't think were possible. Yeah, there's definitely one. I think it's in the VG14 profile. It's a big ledge that I do in the beginning there.
Yep.
When I roll away in the grass, no one ever did that ledge before that day, and we always thought it was one of those things that was on the impossible list. To know that I was the first one to do it, and no one even tried to skate it that day. It's pretty incredible to think back on, and that feeling that when you do something that scares you to death, but doing it in a controlled way where you kind of mastered it. It's an amazing feeling, and it's kind of the feeling that stuck with me. It's not like I'm never going to do that again. I start thinking, like, how can I do that again?
I would think the feeling afterwards is the incredible feeling, but the feeling going into it, looking at something that is maybe not above and beyond your ability level, but is fear-inducing, and you look at something, you're like, holy shit, if I fuck up, I can get hurt on this one, and you try not to think about that beforehand. But what goes through your head when you're going through something that's really above and beyond what you usually do?
What goes through my head is it's a do or die scenario, but I think of all the work that I put in, and all the time and effort that I've put into my craft, and know that I have the skills. And logically, I start thinking about it, do I even have the skills to do what I'm trying to do here? And in this situation, what would you do if this happened? I start thinking of alternative scenarios. If I were to miss a certain way, I start thinking, if I did it this way, then everything will be okay. And the brain game starts. I definitely start leaning on the side of confidence. I definitely put enough hard work into my craft and what I'm doing to be able to do what I want to do on this thing. But fear is the only thing separating me and this obstacle. At the end of the day, these are just obstacles that you want to do something on, and it doesn't really mean anything in the bigger picture of the world or anything like that. But to you in that moment, it does mean a lot. It's a battle for fear. It's a battle for glory. And to be able to dance on the edge of fear and glory at the same time, to accomplish something that you're completely afraid of and do it in a comfortable way with skill, it means a lot to me. I think it means a lot to me in life. So I enjoy facing my fears, and trying to overcome them.
And in facing your fears, I'm getting way ahead of myself, but I'll reel it back in a second. But I don't remember any major injuries with you skating. Did you have any big injuries?
Not necessarily. I never really got broken limbs. I think I fractured my ankle one time, but it wasn't from skating. It was Corey Nelson at Eisenberg's. He was trying to do something on a skateboard on the mini ramp, and he shot the skateboard out and fell on his back, but the skateboard shot out at me and hit me in the ankle.
Oh,
I felt that for a year, but I never really thought it was broken, but I'm pretty sure it was. I was fractured. I definitely think it was now that I think about it. But no, there wasn't really any major injuries. I did have a really big fall. It's in on one of those videos where I jumped this big set and I just landed straight on my knees on the concrete, which I don't even know how. I didn't get severely injured. I'm pretty sure my knees are wrecked on the inside right now.
Right.
Everything else. But yeah, I didn't really have any lasting injuries. You're correct with that.
It's time for my first sponsor break, and I'm going to start things off with Peter Glenn Ski and Sports. This summer, make Peter Glenn your one-stop shop for all of your fun needs. Think everything you'll want or need for wakeboarding, inline skating, hiking, swimming. You get the idea. Peter Glenn has the best brands at the lowest prices. And if you find a lower price from a reputable storefront, Peter Glenn will match that price. There's a reason Peter Glenn has been around for over 60 years, and that's because they're the best. To find out more, head on over to peterglenn.com. My next sponsor is Rollerblade, and they pretty much invented the sport of inline skating, and it's no surprise that they make the most comfortable, high-performance skates out there. If you're already a skater, check out the fit and finish of the 22 Rollerblade line. It will have you skating further and faster than ever before. If you're a new skater, Rollerblade has you covered with skates that are engineered to keep you comfortable, having fun, and most importantly, in control. To find out more about the 2022 offering, head on over to rollerblade.com. My final sponsor this round is Stanley, the brand famous for that iconic bottle that kept your grandfather's coffee hot and his water ice cold. Well, Stanley still has that bottle, but they also have everything you're going to need this summer to go camping. Nothing else matches the quality of Stanley, and like your grandpa's water bottle, the camping cookware will last you a lifetime and create the memories that Stanley is proud to be a part of. I'm going to save you 30% on all of your Stanley gear. That's the best deal you're going to find anywhere. Head on over to stanley1913.com, go shopping, and enter the code DRINKFAST. That's all one word, all lowercase, when you check out, and you'll get the Powell Movement deal. Those are my sponsors. Now let's jump back into the podcast. So I'm going to take it back to the skate park, or the Encinitas skate park that day where you meet Rollerblade. They're testing all their new skates. They see you skate, you're testing some of their skates, and they decide that they're going to hook you up. How does the Rollerblade sponsorship start with you?
At the test session, we were testing the different skates, and I didn't think I was going to get to keep any of them. I thought I'm testing them. Okay. And, their skates worked well. I liked this about them. So here's them back, and they kind of did take them back. But at the end of the session, Mike and Chris were there, and so was Eric. And they're like, you can have these skates. And it was one pair of each skate we tested that day. So I think it was in total, I got 4 pairs of skates that day, and giving a person a pair of skates that had only gotten a pair of skates maybe once a year before that meant a lot. I was like, holy, wow.
That's a dream come true, because like you say, you get a pair once a year. There's other kids who get a pair of skates whenever they need them because their family can make that happen. But for you, it's not that easy. And when someone hands you $1,200 worth of skates, you have to be shitting your pants. I mean, is your dad super excited too?
Yeah, my dad was happy that his son was happy.
Yeah.
My dad's always been really supportive of the things that I enjoy doing and that I excelled in. I mean, he would see that, and I think that my dad's a big, big inspiration in my life, and he's always kind of guided me and helped me in certain directions without being super vocal or controlling about it. He's kind of let me be me, which has always been an amazing thing about my father. Only when you get older can you start seeing the things that actually helped me become the man I am today. And I just can just say I'm super appreciative of it.
Yeah, it's funny how you don't really understand it until you get in your 20s and 30s and you're like, man, he did a lot of things that really molded me into the person I am today.
Yes.
But in terms of Rollerblade and molding you into the person you are today, because they help mold you too, I feel like. They flow you that product, and do they keep in touch with you? And more importantly, do they put you in touch with other rollerblade riders in the area? Like, is this how your friendship with Randy Spicer starts?
Yeah, it definitely does. It was funny, at the end of that skate session when I did get those skates, I met one of the Olsen twins.
Oh, yeah, the guys who started it.
Yeah, I actually met them, and like I gave my number, we're in contact. And Eric was also a big connection to the rollerblade thing too, because I mean his dad was really involved. Glenn Schrine's legendarily involved with his sponsors. And at that point I'm skating with Eric a lot, and then Randy is part of rollerblade too, so I got connected with Randy through that. And once I met Roadhouse, a lot more things opened up, because I mean I remember being 15 and then Randy was 16, and we started talking, and I was like, yo, what up? Let's go skate. And he's like, all right, I'll come pick you up. And I'm like, what do you mean? I'm in San Diego. He's like, yeah, dude, I'll be right there. And he would just drive up from Cypress to San Diego and scoot me up. Maybe we skate around here for a little bit, then we go back there. But once I got into Randy's car, it was like, boom, we're going everywhere. So that definitely changed the game big time. Plus, I enjoy being with the guy.
Yeah, so you become tight with one of the best skaters on the planet at that point, and your stock is rising too. How long does it take from the time you get flowed skates from Rollerblade to them wanting to actually put you on a contract and put you on the Rollerblade team?
It took about 6 months to maybe a year. I think in that time of just building my status with their pros. Honestly, when I started skating with Randy, and even with Eric and Robert, I realized the level that they were on was on a different level than I was on. I had confidence in things I could do. Just the level of skill in certain areas of danger that they had was different than mine. I played it safe in a lot of things, but they can do their comfortable things on bigger things than me. It was kind of a learning process, a stepping up the ladder type of thing for me during that period. It took a little while. I'd say 6 months to a year before I actually got offered a contract to skate. I think Randy and Eric were a big part of that as well.
I'm sure Randy was a big part, but it sounds like Eric has been a big part in a lot of your contracts throughout the years, or at least you've gone to brands that he's been on. But when we go back to the contract with Rollerblade, how does that happen? Do they just give you a call out of the blue and they're like, hey, Louie, we've been flowing you skates. We want to make you an offer and give you a contract? Or how does the whole thing really turn into a contract?
I mean, there was a couple conversations about it, and we had been talking that Rollerblade would set their team thing up like it was a business, so they'd set up their budget for their team, and they want to know who's going to be on their team. They want to add people to it, they're going to be able to help sell skates. So I definitely was up in that area. I was definitely next in line. And when we started negotiations, I mean, it wasn't really negotiation. I was ready to skate for them. I was like, all right, but I wasn't ready for the amount of money they were about to pay me. I didn't think of it like that. I thought it was going to be like a lot less than what was going to be. But yeah, it was a phone call and then just a couple conversations back and forth, and it was done. It was pretty simple.
Well, you say you weren't expecting the money that it became. What was that first Rollerblade contract? What did it look like?
I think it was like $3,000 or $3,500 per month to skate, plus per diem for travel and travel all year. I never had to really pay for anything while traveling with Rollerblade, but I mean the monthly income was a lot higher than I thought.
So you're making like 40 grand a year as a 16-year-old?
Yeah.
That's just one sponsorship, but then when you have a brand like Rollerblade backing you, that really opens up the doors for other brands to want to support you because you've got the biggest brand in the business sponsoring you. They know they're going to get ancillary coverage by sponsoring you as well. And I think the other biggest brand in skating is Senate. And could you describe what Senate was like back then?
Senate was definitely the coolest place to be on the planet if you were a rollerblader. The headquarters, I still remember where it was at. It was on Gothard Street in Huntington Beach. It was Senate that was ran out of this building, but also Medium was from there, 976, the clothing company. But a lot of the minds that made all the rollerblading gear and the stuff that I liked and that made me feel like proud to be a rollerblader was made at Senate, you know?
Yep.
They definitely kind of crafted that angry youth culture the way and the look of rollerblading and rollerbladers at the time. Also, you know, Randy and Eric were, you know, on Senate as well. And I was also skating a lot with Josh Petty too at the time. So we were all kind of hooked up and skating a lot during that time. And, you know, Josh was on Senate as well. And I remember going there to Senate with Josh before I was sponsored with Senate. He would go in there and get these humongous packages and come out. And I'm like, I remember seeing like 10 sets of wheels, you know, maybe come out with like 15 shirts, jeans, you know, all the stuff that I would used to look at and be like, man, like I can get maybe 2 shirts, you know, and a pair of wheels every 6 months maybe. And he just came out with like boxes of this stuff, you know, and it just blew my mind at that time.
It's like Christmas.
It was Christmas for him. Yeah. Christmas for Josh Petty. You know, he was like a size large and I was definitely a size small.
Right.
So, yeah, I think it was a couple months after that, I actually got put on the M team and got to go in there, you know, and experience that and meet Arlo and Brooke Howard Smith and Brian Kanoski. BK was awesome in that area too.
And that program at Senate, they had BMXers as well. They had Rooftop, they had Dave Mira. And the fact that they had that, as well as they had PacSun distribution, which meant they were in every mall in the country. And you could see stickers and backpacks and the show Friends, and they were just everywhere, it seemed like. Was there another level of respect for the brand because they were so big? Like, did the other sports respect Senate more so than the other inline companies because of what they were able to achieve on a national and global level?
I mean, I felt some of that, but I specifically remember this one time I went to, it was the California Regionals to qualify for ASA to even get on the amateur circuit. I remember that. And when I went there, it was the day before the actual competition. It was like, you know, the day to practice. There was a vert ramp there, and Dave Mira was there. I remember I was on Senate at the time. They just came out with that print ad of Dave Mira, a 2-page spread in the Daily Bread. I just remember that, and I'm like, that's Dave Mira, dude, you know? So I'm going to go up there. I'm like, I skate for Senate too, you know? You ride for Senate, you know? So I introduced myself, said hello, and then he's like, yeah, that's awesome. You know, we're cool. And he just drops in, just, you know, throws like a 10-foot air on a bike. You know, that was like the most that I felt of it being like extending to other sports and more coverage outside of the rollerblading thing. But I mean, yeah, other people, some of my friends did notice, you know, Senate was a bigger company. There was a level of respect for sure. I definitely felt it.
How about when you get to high school? Because, I mean, you're in high school during this time, but in school, do kids realize that you're this pro skater, this up-and-coming pro skater who's going to take over the industry? Or is it something that's like your second life outside of high school?
You know, it was kind of like that second life type thing. I don't know. Once, like, I got a little bit more of attention, I think, on, like, maybe media, I did come back to school, and it was like a different situation because I definitely kind of kept to myself and had my own, you know, little crew of friends that I hung out with. But I remember coming back from like an event, and it was televised, and then I came back and I met a lot more people. I mean, I kind of knew them already, but like it was a whole different situation. I walked into school, and everyone was like, "What's up? Oh, hey, you know, I saw you," and things like that.
Yeah, there's a lot of interest in Louie Zamora now.
Yeah. I didn't really know how to deal with that, but I mean, I enjoyed it. It's just different.
And did you graduate high school on time?
Oh yeah, definitely. My senior year, I did the homeschool thing, but the whole junior year, I actually went to school. But I remember being like in different cities with my homework. Everyone's like, "Hey, we're gonna go do this." I'm like, "Hold on, let me just finish my homework real quick." You know.
Yep. And I think towards the end of your high school days is when you start having sponsorship changes. Like Rollerblade was really good to you. How do you even think about leaving Rollerblade for K2?
I liked K2 skates a lot.
Was it just the look of the skates and how light they were, and maybe you skated someone else's skates and were like, these things are awesome?
Yeah, it actually happened before I skated for Rollerblade. I think Tomas let me ride his K2s one time, or I think I forgot something happened where I had skates from other skates and I got to skate K2s, and like honestly, the level of skating that I was at with the other skates that I was on changed when I put K2s on. It literally did. Like I remember being afraid to do things, and certain comfortabilities that I had on rails changed on K2s. I just felt like I could control it a lot more. I understood how it moved, how it slid a lot better on a soft boot. I felt like I had a lot more control. I felt like my skating got much better once I put a pair of K2s on. But then, you know, I put them on for a short period of time, and then I leveled up on those skates, and then I went back to the other skates, you know, and it helped me. Like I was better because of the skates. And I remember thinking, like, imagine if I just rode the skates. Those are my skates, you know, and I remember thinking about that, and that was kind of always in the back of my mind. Even skating the rollerblades, I like skating them. I like the Randy Spicer Pro Skate a lot. But I remember the K2s were the reason like I leveled up so much I could do a lot of the things that I was doing. So I always look forward to maybe getting a chance to skate them. I've always liked trying other skates no matter what. But if I'm sponsored by a company, I'm going to ride them and I'm going to represent them for sure. But I've always liked to feel what other things are like, what the skates are like. But K2s have the most comfortable feeling to me.
And K2 had Matt Lacrosse at that time, and Matt was an amazing, spare no expense visionary. And what was the K2 courtship like for you?
Matt Lacrosse made it really, really, really easy. I mean, I think he pretty much matched the situation at Rollerblade.
So did you get one of those Cesar Moore, like $60,000 K2 contracts?
He got the bigger one, but I was pretty close to that. But Cesar was Cesar, man, you know? Like,
yeah, he's a legend.
Yeah.
You came in as like a dude who was making a name for himself. Cesar came on to K2 as our established legend.
Yeah, on the vert ramp too. So I mean, it's a different story there. You know, vert and street at the time was different. You know, the contracts are different, and I understood that. So yeah, he pretty much carried on what I had at Rollerblade as far as the money goes, monthly stuff. He also added some incentives, you know, to do better at competitions and things like that. And he also gave me a little freedom to help create the team too with him. We put together a lot of really cool people that benefited a lot. I think I saw the same feeling I got when I rode K2s for the first time and then went back to another skate. Like I felt the level up. I saw happen to other people too during this process, which was cool. The K2 thing with Matt Lacrosse has opened up a more casual way because I came from a really corporate setting with Rollerblade, you know, traveling, like here's your per diem, everything's really scheduled. Wake up early, this is what you can do, day's done, boom, get ready this time tomorrow, you know, really scheduled and on the go style traveling. It was a little different with Matt. You know, he was a little more laid back with it, but he definitely still had goals in mind. He had a lot better understanding of the extreme sports skating mind, you know, and he understood how we all were.
He was good with youth marketing for sure.
Yeah, he understood it and he understood how to get the best out of us in ways that didn't feel like we were forced.
And he was able to spoil you guys too. I feel like K2 at that time was known for lavish trips. Did you ever go on like the China trips?
No, I didn't do the China trips. I really wish I did though. I did all the other trips.
What was the most baller trip you ever went on?
The Las Vegas one. I think it was a photo shoot for the new catalog, but it was an excuse to spend a lot of money.
You guys rented crazy cars. I think you rented a Ferrari. What else did you rent?
A Ferrari, a Dodge Viper, a Shelby Cobra, a Hummer, like some gnarly Hummer that was super customized, and then, you know, limos for the team everywhere we went. So the whole time we had all these fast cars and limos to go everywhere we wanted. We're staying in these suites, living that Las Vegas life for a week or so. Yeah, I mean, I could just tell a lot of money was spent at that time. It was pretty baller.
I mean, it sounds like $100,000 trip when you're talking about limos and cars.
Easy.
And then you guys wrecked one of the cars, right?
Well, Keith Wilson, photographer from San Diego, he's also part of the Esco Zoo crew that I came up with, Bo, you know, and Eric and them. He had a lot of my photos in Daily Bed. Yeah, he tends to get a little wild sometimes, and you know, he's one of those guys that you think super nice guy. He's got glasses, you know, really wholesome guy, but when he gets a little crazy, you know, he gets extra crazy, and he definitely took that Shelby Cobra out and wrecked it. You know, I think it was the first night. He wasn't even on the team.
Right. And is that something that he pays for or K2 pays for?
I don't never keep having to pay for that, man.
Yeah, totally.
I think it's just like, all right, man, let's not let that ruin the trip.
Right. It was such a different experience than when I was team manager because the budgets were night and day.
I remember the difference. But yeah, like the Las Vegas trip was something that was like, okay, that was like kind of a obvious, you know, spend a lot of money thing. But I like the more low key, like things that we were able to do when we would travel. We would go to like an event, but we go like a couple days earlier, stay a couple days later. And we would do like, say something was in the city, like we would go rent motorcycles or something like that and just go cruise in the mountains or something like that. We do that all the time. And then after that, we go to Benihana's or something like that. You know, Benihana's every time.
It sounds like a dream time to be on the K2 brand. And at that time too, while you were idolized as a street skater for your countless video parts, I think Wasteland and VG stand out to everyone, you competed a lot too. And what's the story behind your first pro contest podium? Do you remember that? Was it a huge day?
I do remember that. I mean, it took a while to get qualified to get on the pro circuit. I mean, that was a lot of competitions in itself, which I'm competitive to a certain point. But I mean, in skating, it's like, you know, there's a competitive side to it too, but it's also like just a freestyle, be yourself type thing.
Sure.
But I like competition. So like, if I'm in, you know. I'm definitely trying to win. So like on my way up to qualify, before I got to that very first pro one, I won every event to get there. And that was like against like Dustin Latimer, Brian Shima. I mean, a lot of the greats in rollerblading at the time too.
Yeah.
Kevin Gillen, a lot of people all the way up there. And then I got to go to my first ASA televised event. It was like a B3, which was on blades, boards, and bikes
Yep.
in St. Petersburg, Florida. That was my very first pro competition that I actually qualified to skate for. And that weekend, there was another NIS competition in Salt Lake City, Utah. So I remember sitting in San Diego before we go with my crew, Eric and Robert. Me and Eric skated for Rollerblade at the time. They're like, hey, well, we're going to St. Petersburg. And Robert skated for Razors, I believe. And he's like, well, I'm going to go to St. Petersburg to skate at the NIS. So we flew out, and I ended up winning the St. Petersburg ASA. Eric Schrijn got second. And then Robert ended up winning the NIS event in Salt Lake City that weekend.
So your crew's just cleaning up.
Yeah, we cleaned up that weekend for sure. And several weekends to come after that too. Like, we were on our game. We all had the same mentality. Like, hey, if we're going to go there, we're trying to win that. And I kind of like that portion of skating. That it made us kind of hungry. And it wasn't really just the money thing. It's like, I just won that event. Felt like accomplishing a goal. Felt good. Like we're making progress. It was a good time.
It's time for my second round of sponsors, and while ski season is coming to a close, Elan Skis is still supporting the show because they know how important the history of this sport is. What's important to me is that you do your part by checking out Elan's site, looking at their products, and demoing a pair next season. Once you do try an Elan ski, you'll end up buying that pair as the quality and performance of Elan's products is unmatched. I'm sure you've started to see more and more Elan skis at your local hill, and the reason is because they are more fun and they're going to make you a better skier. To find out more about everything Elan and their skis, head on over to elanskis.com. My final sponsor is the 10 Barrel Brewery out of Bend, Oregon. They've been brewing the best beer in the Pacific Northwest since 2006, and they've been banging the drum about drinking 10 Barrel outside ever since. But they don't just go outside and drink. They support athletes like skiers Kate Zelef and Lucas Walks and snowboarder Ben Ferguson, mountain biker Carson Storch, and many, many more. And they don't just pay these people. They give them beer, and they create content around them for all of us to enjoy. If that's not enough, 10 Barrel's Clean Line Seltzer has the perfect bubble recipe and flavors, and their cocktails in a can pack a punch. I love them. To find out more about 10 Barrel, head on over to 10barrel.com. Those are my sponsors. Now let's get back into the podcast. A lot of times it seems like street skaters, they were almost too cool for contests or put off that vibe at least. You didn't feel that way about contests at all? You enjoyed them?
Well, I mean, I enjoyed a lot of them, but there's definitely some times where like I fell into the I'm too cool type feeling. I think, I think it was like a street skater type of thing. Like, oh, this is pretty corporate events. We're not really corporate people, but at the end of the day, we all felt really good if we won. So I don't know. I could say for the most part, I'd say I 75% enjoyed contests. The other 25%, I was getting a little over the corporate feeling of it.
And regardless of how cool street skating is, I would think that you're really fired up to get your first X Games invite in 1998. It's in your hometown in San Diego. I'm sure your family can go to it. What's going through your head for that one? Is that just like the biggest deal of your life at that point?
I got to go to the first X Games in San Diego, but I couldn't skate in that. I got to skate in the X Games the year after.
Oh.
So I got to go see what the X Games was about, which was amazing in San Diego. And what I saw too, I always remember in San Diego, next to the beach, but I remember seeing like this big artificial slope they had for snowboarding and skiing.
Yep.
I remember just seeing like a super hot sunny day, but people going down this slope on skis and snowboards. I'm like, that's the X Games, dude. You know what I mean? That's crazy. And then the street course there was amazing. So I got to watch Eric and Randy skate in it the first year, and the next year I got to skate in it. It was amazing. Yeah, I definitely wanted to be invited to these events. I like skating in the big events. I liked to plan it out too, and figure out what I was going to do, on the course when I got there. When I got home, I would practice a lot of the things that I knew I was going to see on these street courses. These street courses were much bigger than they looked.
Yeah.
They were not small ramps to skate by any means. So the worst feeling is getting to a street course that you're going to skate in the competition and then being afraid to do something, or maybe you don't have the skill to do it. I've seen a lot of guys get hurt out there. So we come home and we straight up go practice. Under me and Eric and Robert too, drilling 540s at the Escondido skate park, or finding places that have bigger boxes so we can go and practice, and a lot of the skills that we end up using and the things that we did on our runs were earned. We had to go practice those things and learn them before we got out there.
But it also seemed like it was one of those things that you would never let anybody know that you guys practiced anything for a park contest, it seemed like, because of the too cool factor.
And you're spot on, my friend. Definitely, Mike, you're right. It wasn't like, hey, we weren't going to tell anybody we're practicing, but when we're out skating, we knew what we were doing.
Right.
We don't want to show up to the next event and be too afraid to 540 the box, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
or, do this gap, like we got to have that stuff on lock, ready to go. It's definitely preparation involved, whether we want to admit it or not.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, you had two huge contest highlights. The first is 1999, you podium at the Gravity Games. And that's your first big contest on a global level where hundreds of millions of people are going to see you on a podium. Do you realize how big it is when you're there?
Well, yeah, I never been to a contest quite like the Gravity Games. It was like they took over the entire city in Providence. I remember seeing, I thought there were electricity lines, but there were lines for the cameras going up and down the street. That was intense. They had people like downhill skateboarding, like luge events going on, like right next to us in the hills of Providence.
Yep.
I mean, it was like a whole city was a competition, and they had wakeboarding right next to the street course. And it was just, wow, like a lot of production went into that, a lot of money went into the situation to make it like that. I remember seeing celebrities walking around, it was at NBC.
Yep.
Yeah. So when it came down to that street course, we actually got practice for 2 days on it. And yeah, I liked that course a lot too. And I think everyone that was competing in the Gravity Games that year went for it. I felt the competition at that one and I liked it. I liked that feeling. It's a whole different side of role that, I don't really see these days at all anymore, but brought out some pretty cool things, I think.
So you have that one. Then the next big contest that we'll talk about is the X Games, where I think you got silver or bronze. I can't remember which one you got, but I was there for that one in Philly. And which is bigger? Is it that X Games or that Gravity Games for you?
Honestly, the X Games, I felt like one of my biggest accomplishments. I felt like I could have won it. And I always wanted to win the X Games. And I was right there on the cusp of doing it. But yeah, I got second that year.
Was it Sven that won that year?
No, it was Jern Grove.
Okay.
I remember how he won that. He qualified first, so he gets to skate last. I qualified second. So, my final run there, I did the run of my life. I landed every single thing in my line, and I even added something at the end that I never knew I was going to do, and I just landed by it. I remember I roiled off the launch box and 540'd off to flat ground. That was like 10-foot drop to the ground. And I landed it, no hands, nothing. I threw my helmet. I was done. I was the best run I've ever done. And after that, I was like, all right, boom, I was in first. And then Jaren had to skate, and I remember Arlo's on the mic, and he's like, but we still have the monster Jaren, Grove, hyping him up. The crowd's going nuts. Jaren takes his shirt off, this hard rock Metallica comes on, dude, and it's like, oh shit, I lost, dude, it's over. I know they're going to give it to Jaren right here, dude. Yeah, and he definitely won.
Did he win it, or did the judges give it to him, in your opinion?
You want my opinion on that? I think
yeah.
I think I should have won that one, honestly.
No, it's fair to say because it goes either way. It depends on the contest and the day. I mean, judging, you never know what's going to happen.
Yeah, technically, I think I definitely won, but I can see how they could have given him the win too. Like on the amplitude side, like I was definitely really technical with it.
Yeah, just the excitement of the monster.
Yeah, definitely, and he went big too. Jay gets excitement for a reason, man.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So now I'm going to take it away from contests and I'm going to talk about skates because I don't want this to get too far and me to miss out on some topics that I want to hit. But you end up leaving K2, and I don't think you actually leave K2. Matt Lacrosse leaves his job at K2 because he's not happy with how corporate things are going. They don't hire me for a year, and K2 has a year with no team manager and just let every single athlete get totally pissed off at the brand. Is that what happened to you? You just got no phone calls answered and you were irate?
Before Matt Lacrosse left, I was trying to orchestrate a situation where I can get a pro skate because, the royalties, and I knew that I was helping sell a lot of K2 skates.
Sure.
I knew that I was doing that, and I knew that I put together some guys on the team that were also helping to sell it. Like, I remember I got Dominic Sagona on K2 and Troy White at the time, and us three were pushing it pretty hard. We're going on these tours and doing these things, and on Matt Lacrosse's exit, they had bought a tour bus, and I think everything kind of fell apart for Matt when that tour bus came along. Like, it started as a good idea, but then it kind of took on its own life and its own thing, and it kind of got away from him. I think he felt that was getting away from him, plus the corporate, frustrations that he was having, which I don't really know much about, changed it. But at the time, he was trying to help me get a pro skate. I made some colorways and things like that, and I felt like it could have possibly happened. But then, they came out with a yellow 250cc. That was going to be my skate, but they just didn't give it to me. They just put it out there and started selling it.
So that's got to piss you off.
Yeah, it pissed me off for quite a bit, I'm like, I've been wanting a pro skate. Like, I've been putting a lot of effort into it, and I wanted to put something, my name on it, and sell it that way because, I think that was like the goal at the time for a lot of people. And it wasn't happening. It didn't happen at Rollerblade, and it didn't happen at K2. And during the time, I had gotten an offer from Powerslide for this very thing. The offer was sitting for a little while too. Like I still stayed on K2s for a while before I actually accepted that situation. So that year of not knowing where to go, no direction, made it a little easier to start thinking about other alternatives to achieve the goal I just wanted to achieve with K2. I felt like I would have stayed with K2 probably the rest of my skating career. We could have just worked things out.
Yeah, but from where I was inside and seeing the budgets get slashed and everything, it wouldn't have been a good idea to stay. So it actually was probably a smart idea for you to go in the long run, but it took a few years to even figure that out internally.
Yeah. No, I think that when you got in there, you had a lot of work to do to clean up what was left. Because I know that with that bus and like the way that the BMX program and all that stuff intertwined too, I think it got a little hard to understand what was going on and what the goals were for marketing and for management. I think you got to put together a lot of that stuff and sort through a lot of madness to find some light there.
Yeah, it was definitely putting the pieces back together, and really, I just had to call a lot of people that had left 70 voice messages at K2 and let them know, hey, sorry, most of them already moved on to other brands and had kind of picked up their lives and realized that K2 was screwing them over. But then we eventually made amends with some people and things started moving on. But you end up going to USD, you end up getting your pro skate there. But really, what's exciting about the end of your USD time is that you are able to put the plans together for creating your own brand. Like you and Randy want to make a brand. I believe it's your main idea to do it. And it's not like you two have the bankroll to create a skate brand. So you go to Powerslide and you're like, hey, this is my pitch. I'm going to create this brand. And is that what you do, is just kind of put a plan together and pitch it to Matthias and go from there?
Yeah. After having the pro skate, it sold well. We had our wheel company, me and Randy and Josh, but I mean, it really became me, Randy, doing the wheel company. Josh was doing his own thing. And then, Scott Walker was helping us too. Having Scott Walker in the equation when we started the wheel company at Second Regime really helped change my perspective on how the business works. And when I got my pro skate, I made sure that royalties were going to come my way from the boot, but it was just boot only, and then now I have 50-50 frame that I had a pro frame from them. And then I had pro wheels. So like putting the ensemble together and making the entire skate out of it with 3 different products with my name on them started having me thinking of how this could work, and how maybe possibly design a skate, have it boot only, and have other skaters put their own frames on it and their own wheels on it. And the more we thought about it, I thought, boot only was kind of the future, because the people with rollers like to customize. And I've always liked to design skates and figure them out and work different things out with skates. I've always wanted to do that. I've always wanted to pursue that. I enjoy doing it. That's why I really wanted to work with K2, because I always watched their design team. Like they actually put a lot of effort into their design team with their rec skates and speed skates and stuff like that. But at this point with USD, I'm flying out to see Matthias out in Germany, which will become a regular thing. But for the first time I go out there, I'm thinking this guy's doing a lot. He's got a lot of companies going here and there. He seems like a businessman willing to possibly hear out an idea. And the more I thought about the idea before I made this trip, I'm like, maybe I'll have a little interest in it. Maybe I'll start something. Then in the future, I'll figure it out. When I started thinking about it, I started talking to Robert about it. How do I do this? And he's like, dude, if you're going to do it, do it. And I'm like, you're right, man. So I literally bought a business plan book, business plans for dummies. And I bought another business plan book. And I got on this plane with an idea, read the book, started looking at the other book and started putting together a business plan while on the plane. I mean, I got 12 hours to figure it out. So on the plane, I figure out this whole thing and I write an entire business plan with a marketing plan to go with it. And I get there. Mark Corte picks me up. He was the team manager there at the time, the whole stretch crew thing. And I have him take me to a coffee place and I put together this binder, and then I go meet Matthias for the first time. And I think he's just thinking he's going to meet me. And my pro skate had done well. So he's excited to meet me and I'm excited to meet him. But I don't think he was expecting me to pitch him another skate company, an idea. And I had it presented pretty nicely, dude. So when I got to this meeting and I gave it to him, he was really, really impressed with it. We saw the business plan and he's like, all right, dude, well, we can do this. We can be in China next week starting to make these skates. And I'm like, are you serious? Like, no way. I'm not thinking that's going to happen this fast. And he's like, yeah. And he told me how much it costs and how much he's willing to put up to do this. And I told him, well, I want to do this with Randy. Randy didn't even know yet. Didn't know that I was going to pitch him yet. He didn't know. I mean, I did this completely on my own. So when I got the approval to do this company, I called Randy. I'm like, hey, we're doing a company, dude. We're doing another one. He's like, what do you mean? I'm like, yeah, me and you are going to do this skate company. And me and Randy have been working with designs forever too, so I knew he was going to be on board. Yeah, that's how Deshi started right there.
Did you have to put any of your own money into it, to you and Randy, or is it something that's all Power Slide owned and you guys are more like name and image that they're using?
Yes, that's definitely how it was. We put money into second machine or a wheel company because I was more at home. But I think something overseas like that, I'd be very wary of putting my money into. But I also believed in the idea. But I was definitely no money. He would use our name, image, likeness to sell the product, and then we'd also, promote it with our skating and doing tours and things like that. So it was definitely like a marketing plan geared with that. He gave us a percentage of the company based off of our contributions for the designs and for skating.
So when you get a percentage of the company, what does that look like? I mean, do you get 10% of Dashi?
I think we had it where Matthias was definitely going to own the majority, but me and Randy were supposed to have I think 20% each or something like that. But it wasn't like a paper, like, here you go, you got 20% of this company, there's no stocks or anything like that to prove it, but that was what we had. We had a contract signed, we were part owners of this company with the Power Slide brand. But, at the same time, the majority of being owned by Power Slide, he's got his own team over there doing things. And whenever we did projects, me and Randy together, as far as designing and controlling how a brand was going to be presented, we wanted to be there for every single step and every single move. In the beginning, we were able to do that and still skate and still do second regime. We were doing a lot. But, can't stop the forces of the Power Slide doing their own thing sometimes too, though.
So did they take over and then kind of eventually just email you like, hey, we're thinking about doing this with Dashi and this with Dashi, and it's less and less of your involvement, and eventually you get less interested and eventually you transition out?
Yeah, that's basically in a nutshell what happened. It was a slow burning effect with that. First it was one thing that I would see design out of nowhere show up in a European magazine. I'm like, what is that? We would never do that. And it's oh, we just did that because of a quick release, so something we had to fill the gaps or something like that, or a spot was needed for ads, we got a free ad. It was just always something like that. And then a lot of the designs just started coming out of nowhere. The first boot design looked good on the computer when we designed it. When we started printing it out, certain things that we needed to iron out. And I think that very first one we made was just a trial attempt, and it definitely was about to start to get better. We were right on the cusp of making something really good there. But then, he starts coming in, cutting things for costs and saying it's less expensive to do it this way, which was completely, redesigning the skate pretty basically. We started losing a lot of power there. And, the other designs started coming out without our knowledge, definitely started chipping away at our integrity. We no longer felt like we were in control of something that we wanted to support, and it happened that way. And I think me and Randy both phased out of that situation damn, man, at least we got the experience,
Yeah, and I think that's kind of around the time that you leave skating-ish for the first time. You're going to be with the girl you've been with since 1998, you're going to get into real estate, and it seems like you're doing well, but you must have missed skating because somehow our paths crossed, and I don't even remember how you and I got in touch in early 2000s. Do you remember?
I think it was just on the computer. Maybe it was a Facebook thing, or that's why you're doing work with K2. I always was interested in anything that K2 was doing, and after meeting you, I knew that you were there making decisions and doing things like that. I always wanted to see the direction. I think I just kind of messaged you, I think.
So we ended up talking, and it was Louie, I want you on the program. You can skate as much or as little as you want. I just want Louie Zamora on K2s. And I think I told you that, dude. I was like, hey, I don't care if you skate at all. I just want you on K2s, and we'll take some pictures and continue the Louie Zamora legacy. And I knew you would start skating a lot more if you were part of a brand. And I was excited about that. And I think I gave you a little bit of travel the first year. And the second year, we gave you a little bit of travel too. And then the next year, you and I sat down. I remember building a budget with you in Excel. And to me, it seemed like the first time you'd ever built a budget like that, and you were excited on K2 moving into the future. And then I don't know what happened after that. Do you remember that time?
I do remember that time. At this time, I was really happy with working with you at K2. I remember too that you were in contact with Joey McGarry quite a bit at that time, and you were really interested in what he was doing. And I remember I had no knowledge about it at all. And you're like, this guy's cool. I'm like, okay, cool. And I met Joey McGarry for the first time in person too. We actually shot some stuff together for K2, and it's just crazy to me to think back that you were interested in what they were doing a long time ago, and then to see how they progressed. Good eye.
I hooked Joey McGarry and Todd up with skates in 2002.
Yeah, they definitely were amazing. But yeah, for me at that time, I was really happy with working with K2 and working with you specifically, because you kind of took me through it in a way that I've never been taken through it before, in a professional but cool way, where you noticed the areas that I didn't know what I was doing at, and you helped me learn them.
I just wanted us to be on the same page. Like, hey, Louie, this is how it's going
Yeah,
to work, and we need to understand each other.
yeah, and like I've been so used to working with people like in skate companies that were like, yeah, this is how it's going to be, but like not really, like they're not really telling me the real truth about things. There's a lot of deception involved with the skate companies before that in negotiating things. It's like I don't know why I just felt that way. So it took me a little bit to come around to that and notice that you're just trying to do the right thing. And once I got there, I was definitely really happy with it. But at the time too, I'm doing this real estate thing. I'm working like a real job for the first time in my life, like ever. I'm married, and I'm trying to like do this whole American dream life, with the house, work the job, and be a professional, and still try to skate. But my passion's rollerblading.
Well, I feel like we had a falling out, unfortunately, and I feel like it wasn't even your fault that much. We had a plan. We put together a plan. I think our budget was like $70,000 for the whole aggressive program at K2. And so we had sat down, we lined out a budget. I remember giving you like 10 grand or something like that just to be part of the program. Yeah. And then we were breaking out all the other dollars of where they were going to go. And then like a week later, after you had flown back to San Diego, your brother had just graduated from law school, and he called me up like he was this big time lawyer who had done all this shit in his life. But really, he hadn't done fucking anything. And he was a dick to me too. And I had worked with like 50 different Olympians and worked with their agents and worked with real lawyers at the time. So your brother, who was trying to bully me, wasn't going to be able to bully me. And I let him know that the negotiations were way too far apart on day one. And I'd rather stay friends with Louie than piss him off if we were going to get in negotiations like this. And we were going to go our separate ways. And there was going to be no more conversation with K2. And that was it. And that was my take on it. I was never going to speak to your brother again. What was your take on that whole situation?
My take on it was, I don't know. I think my brother just came out of law school thinking like, now I got to take out my first thing, and this is what a lawyer is about, doing these things like that. I think it was a learning experience for him. For me, it was like, help me out, Steven. I mean, I've helped you out a bunch of times before, and I was also careless in the way I had him do that. I should have been a lot more closer to the situation, but at the time I had a lot of other things going on in my life that I thought that I can just kind of distribute my brother's professional and attention without filling him in or even helping him with the situation. And I felt bad for you in the situation too, because I didn't give you any backstory on what's going on. It was just like here's a brutal negotiation to figure it out while I'm doing other things, as far as work goes. And I don't know, I feel it was a falling out on both of our parts, but I feel like I'm to blame a lot for that because I could have definitely been a lot closer to it.
Yeah, I mean, and you can look back on it and say you should have been a lot closer to it, but really, it was business too. At the same time, it's never going to affect my friendship with someone, although business sometimes does. But like your brother asking for that stuff, it more made me pissed at him because we had a relationship and had something going well. And it was just kind of cut off with that. And that is what it is. It's unfortunate. Your next move, you were way ahead of your time with Orion Live when you were going to live stream blading events. And it seemed like after that, you went outside of blading again. And this is where I feel like things went dark with you. The story I heard with how your life changed and turned to a dark place was it starts with you helping a stranger on the side of the road who had a flat tire and you got hit by a car. Is that what happens?
Orion Live was definitely, I feel like, ahead of its time. And I actually enjoyed doing that. But I kind of had my toes in rollerblading. My heart was there, but like my actions were elsewhere. I think I got a little overwhelmed with life and I got hit by that car and then I had to do all this rehabilitation stuff and I got prescribed medication to do this, and I've been skating professionally for this long, part of the business is getting hurt, and like rehabilitation was like, I always knew it was going to be part of it, I don't know, it just felt like I fell into this negative space where I was just depending on these medications to make me feel better, being less and less sociable, isolating a lot more. And at the time, my ex was into that too. She didn't mind, staying in the house all day, watching shows and just isolating. Fell into like a cycle of isolation for a while there.
Is it all because of the drugs, though? Is it like you get hurt, they prescribe you pain medicine, and then you get hooked? Like, it's just like you read a bad after-school special, but it happens to so many people. And then eventually the drugs get to the point where you keep wanting to take more and more, and you have to try to get them wherever you can. Is that what happens?
That's exactly what happened. Like I'm on these prescribed medications, and then they want to stop prescribing them for whatever reason that they're scared they're going to get in trouble, or I don't know what's going on. But either way, like I know that I'm no longer able to get these prescriptions. So I started figuring it out, so that's when I started actually looking toward the street life. But I mean, I grew up in an area where like there was a lot of street activity, and I was familiar with this. So me getting back involved into that, it's like a hidden part of me that I kind of excelled at, unfortunately. So, yeah, a whole new part of my life happens when these doctors start prescribing me these medications, and I have to start looking for it myself.
You start living on the streets and becoming like a street urchin, for lack of a better term.
It's pretty much, dude. Even though I have a place to live, my parents, I always had a place to go. I still preferred being out there because the drugs, was there. And I was really ashamed of doing that stuff and being that kind of person next to the people that actually truly cared for me. And I didn't want to be that person there, but, I traded home and a place to live and comfort of family for no family and no comfort on the streets, just to make sure I can maintain my habit, because that's what I thought was what I needed at the time. Had me really, really blinded and willing to let go of the things I care about most and being okay with it.
And I found out about this when there was a Blading Cup event, I think like 2 or 3 years ago. I don't remember which year it was. And I forget who I was messaging with. And I was like, oh, have you seen Louie? And they were like, no, actually, we heard Louie's a couple blocks from the event, but he's strung out on drugs right now. And I was like, what? Louie strung out on drugs? I didn't even know that happened with you. But I mean, it can happen to anybody. I mean, do you remember the Blading Cup, that event? And is that like a rock bottom for you? Or what is rock bottom? What makes you want to get help?
I wasn't even at that Blading Cup. I think that because I told Robert, Robert knew. I think he told some people. But rock bottom for me was, I'd say, I used to be on the streets in Santa Ana. I was on the streets there for about 3 months. I was in and out of this detox place that was in Santa Ana. That's why I was there. My dad kept trying to get me to go there. And I would want to go and then not want to go and not want to be there because I didn't understand there was another way to live at that point. I was really stuck in this tunnel vision of this one kind of life that I was involved in. I kind of gave up on a lot. So rock bottom was me having to go to this detox, but before going there, I remember rollerblading being one of my most passionate things in my life and things that I love to do and allowed me to be myself. And I forgot what that was like for a while. I mean, I was doing this for years now at this point. And there's a Vin Goods distribution spot. It's on 2nd Street, Santa Ana. I remember I used to walk by it and I'd be with some dudes on the streets and be like, this is my homies right there. They have this skate shop or skate store here. And they actually skate around the world. And they're like, nah, dude, no way. And I'm like, yeah, I do that, man. And then people talk shit and I'm like, oh, whatever. And I'm like, what if I had skates right now? What would it be like? And I started fantasizing about skating and just remembering what skating is all about. And it actually brought me back in and built me back into the things that I remember loving to do. And skating means a lot for me and more than just ways for myself. I remember, friendships, family moments, accomplishments. And a lot of my life is tied to things I've done on skates or skates have been involved with. And I started remembering good memories and things that I enjoyed doing, things that are worth living for, worth trying to live for. I went there and I would kind of dance around the area where the shop was, seeing if anyone was there. No one was really ever there. But one day, Jason Reyna was there. And I was walking by and I was like, I know Jason, and I want to say hello, but I don't want him to see me like this, and I don't want to be this person. I felt so ashamed to be who I was at that point in time. And it made me realize, I'm not me right now. I need to make a change, And me going up to talk to Jason Reyna and telling him, hey, I want to skate again, was me saying, hey, man, I'm done with the way I'm living right now, and I want to live like you. I want to be back in this area of life,
Yeah.
And it wasn't just me saying hi, it was me saying, this is me now. And yeah, it's weird to say that I was scared to do that, but I was definitely very scared to do that. So I talked to Jason. He was nice to me. And then John showed up. And I talked to John. And he was John, shocked to see me like that way. And I was definitely still ashamed, but I felt happy that I got to talk to them and let him know that I was going to go to this detox. And I felt like he didn't believe me for a second there. And I understand that because I told other people I was going to go to a detox and try to live right, and get my shit together.
Yeah.
It's like almost, still want to believe me, and I almost want to believe myself, but at this time I believed myself. I mean, I knew I was going to go. I felt really confident in the fact that I want to go somewhere. I want to come back here. I want to skate again, and I want to start reaching out to people that have been instrumental in my life and I've made good memories with and start building new ones. I want to get back to my family and I want to get back to the things that I care about. Because the way I was living before was extremely selfish and pointless. I was going nowhere with it. Nothing was happening. I wasn't happy at all. Very unhappy. That was a changing point in my life right there so far, and that was 8.5 months ago.
Nice. And since then, I know you've mentioned you're going to meetings. Is like sobriety the most important thing to you, and then skating?
Yeah, so sobriety, my recovery process is everything to me right now. That's my foundation. I wake up every day, I do a meeting, and then my connection with the higher power, means a lot to me right now. And my family, they helped me go in a direction where I couldn't really choose for myself anymore. Everything I was choosing to do and controlling my life was leading me down like a path of misery. Always, and I'd have some moments like, yeah, I got this, and I figured this out, and okay, but I'd always end in the same exact way of losing everything and wanting to isolate because me trying to control everything doesn't work, and I had to let go of that type of control, that fear, and just trust that the people that love me know what's right for me at this point. So I actually got to a point where I didn't know what was best for me anymore, and I had to trust the people, and when I did that, things started to change, and me letting go of control really helped me understand that it's not about me, it's not about me. I have so much more things going on. I think of myself all the time. It's hard for me to cringeworthy to think about it now, but I'm just happy that I got put on a different path and I got in a position where I can, actually have these conversations with people like you and Mike and recall these moments of my life and just be happy. I'm just grateful to be here right now. Grateful that I'm actually going to go rollerblading today. And my son's okay.
I mean, it's an incredible story. I mean, things like this happen to a lot of people. I mean, the opioid crisis is ridiculous, and unfortunately, it happened to you, but you're able to get out, and you're able to get out faster than I feel like a lot of people. And I believe just from talking to you that it sounds like you realize that it's like you're doing a meeting every day. It takes a lot of work to stay sober and to stay in recovery. So it sounds like you're doing that work, and I'm not going to harp on this stuff anymore because I jump into something that I call inappropriate questions to end the podcast. This part of the show is where I get someone that to ask 3 questions, and they can be anything. I was able to get someone that we both consider good friends, Eric Schrijn, to do the inappropriate questions. I love Eric. I know you love Eric as well. And he is going to ask you 3 questions. I'm going to jump into question number 1 right now. Here it is.
All right.
Okay, Louie, here's my first question. During your skate career, what company was the hardest to skate for? Like, what made it so lame?
Say maybe skating for Harbinger. Every time we skated, we had to wear the pads every single time, and then Eric's dad would not let us go without making sure those pads are going to be worn in the photo. They were really on top of us, even during street sessions. We'd go on the street and they're on the phone, hey, do you wear your pads right now? Is anyone there to take pictures? They're really monitoring that situation, so we're really on top of that. The real answer to the question was probably going to be power slide, and it was pretty difficult to skate for them. They have their own ideas of doing things, and they don't really get consent from anybody. It just kind of goes out there. If they had just interacted more with me, and communicated, we could have done a lot cooler things instead of just taking control of it and throwing it out there. That's my answer to the question.
All right, we will jump into question number 2, and let me cue it up right now.
Okay, here's another question. During your travels, where was the coolest place that you got to go visit and skate that ultimately you got kicked out of?
In all my travels, I liked skating everywhere, but honestly, the coolest place we ever got to skate that we get kicked out of is Rancho Bernardo High School, and we would go there on Christmas, on holidays, just to try to get there, and skate undisturbed. We'd always eventually get kicked out of there, but they had the best stuff, and we pretty much go skating there. So it was always come back home and stay at the spot right next to where we live the most. So I'd say it's Rancho Bernardo High School. We skated a lot. We did get kicked out all the time.
You ever get ticketed for skating?
Oh, yeah.
Like a bunch?
I'd say I got probably 3 total tickets for skating.
Okay. I'm going to jump into your final inappropriate question.
Yeah.
I got one last question for you. Can you tell us about the time you won a check for $10,000 at the Gravity Games and misplaced it somewhere in your car just to have it pop up a month later and wrote it off like it was no big deal?
You lost a $10,000 check. What's that all about?
Well, I didn't know I lost it. I think I looked at a Robert's car, man. Yeah, we'd have the Gravity Games one weekend. The X Games one weekend, and then the Gravity Games the next weekend. And then I got second place at the X Games in Philly, and then second place at the Gravity Games the next one. And it was 2 big checks, so I had one of them deposited, and I was chill, I guess I forgot about the other one in Robert's car for a month. And I don't know, one day Robert's hey, you missing something, dude? And I was like, what are you talking about? He's oh, here's just a check, dude. You left it in the car. I was oh, shit, that's $10,000. All right, thank you. Yeah, so that's how that happened.
That's wild. And speaking of that, so that's a $20,000 couple weeks that you made during those contests. How much is the most you think you made in a year from inline skating? Do you ever have like $150,000 a year?
I think there's some years I definitely made like 100. But I mean, the way I've spent money was like pretty quick with my friends. I mean, like I basically pay for everything all the time. So I spend money pretty quickly. So as fast as I can make it, I'm spending it. So I think I definitely some years that went over like $100,000. I don't think I ever made $150,000 skating.
And how did you do with taxes? Were you good at paying them ahead of time, or when the tax man came on April 15th, were you always screwed?
No, it's like they're good at taxes. My mom has always been really good with that with me. She's always helped me with the tax thing and making sure the business side of things is always taken care of. I'm kind of spoiled like that.
Nice. Well, that's good to have. And that was Inappropriate Questions, and that's our podcast, Louie. And just thinking about you, I have so much respect for you, not only for your skating, but just for the man you are. I mean, sure, you've made some mistakes and you've had some dark times, but it's really what we do during those dark times that define us. And it sounds like you're going to meetings, putting in the work, and doing what you can to be a better man and to be the man you need to be for your son. And that's the most important thing I feel like in the world, and you understand that. So while, yeah, you slipped up a little bit here and there, it's not like it ruined your whole life. It ruined a few years, and it's great to see you skating and getting your life back on track again. And I can't wait to see you at some point somewhere.
Anytime, Mike pal. Thank you very much for always being supportive of me, man, and being a great friend over the years, and a good example of how to be a good dad. You're a great man yourself, and I really appreciate you and I respect you. So thank you so much.
So that was time with Louie Zamora, and man, when we parted ways when I was at K2, the last thing I thought would happen to Louie was him developing a drug problem. But that's why the opioid crisis is so fucked up. One injury, and if you're not careful, it can take away a long skating career, it can take away a family, and it can easily take away a life. So I'm so happy that Louie is getting help, and while this is a dark time in his life, he can see the light at the end of the tunnel, and no one will ever be able to take away the amazing things that he did for skating and skating did for him. That's the podcast. At this point, it's time for the review of the week, and this week, it's not a traditional review. It's a social media post. If you post about the podcast and I like it and read it on the show, you get yourself a limited edition beanie. This week, the beanie goes to Zach Johns, and Zach's post goes like this. If any of my fellow skiers and snowboarders are looking for an excellent podcast to listen to, let me recommend The Powell Movement. It's a magic carpet ride through the ski industry that we, the generation who grew up ripping bumps and making hop turns in our jeans while praying that the ski patrol wouldn't destroy our 6-inch kickers, grew up with. Host Michael Powell had a front row seat through most of what was happening in the action sports world in our era, and his interviews with icons such as Schmidt, Plake, Hattrop, Stump, Nobis, Hall, Douglas, Fisher, and many, many, many more is everything someone who never threw away an issue of Powder and still cranks up classic ski vids in the old VCR would ever want in modern ski media. Give it a listen. Thank you very much for that review or that post, Zach. It is amazing, and if you email me at mike@thepowellmovement.com, I will send you a limited edition beanie. Everybody else, you know that if you put up a social media post or an iTunes or a Spotify or an anything review, and I like it and I read it in the outro of the show, you will get a beanie as well. You have my email address, so you can email me even if you don't win a beanie. If you have any questions or concerns, I will get back to you. So Zach, thank you for doing that, and thank you everyone else for listening. Finally, I want to thank all the great brands who make this show happen. They are Stanley, Peter Glenn Ski and Sports, Elon Skis, Rollerblade, and the 10 Barrel Brewery. Have a great week, everyone.